somebody comes in at like later through the meeting, it just like, says that when you pop in. So, all right. So thanks everybody for being here. Really appreciate it. I guess, Tim, do you want to start and just kind of go over beach overviews, updates, anything, before we move on to Camp T and some of these other phase 2 discussions we need to have?
Yeah, I can do that. So I sent out a news story this morning, and I just kind of want everybody to understand that as we move through this, it's the discretion of all the boards, it's the discretion of the Board of Health to, make these changes and implement the policies and procedures. And that's why we kind of asked everybody to come together. We do not have to move into phase 2 if we are not ready to move into phase 2. So just to be perfectly clear with that on everybody, just like we did with the beach, let's make sure we're taking our time. We're doing what's right. We're making sure that, things that we say that we're going to do are actually attainable before we commit to doing them. Because there's a lot of information, and I don't know if everybody in their very busy lives has had time to read through all of these documents and kind of educate as far as some of this stuff is concerned. But as we work through this, I know that there's a lot of members of the community who are really itching to go with certain things like sports, with certain things like getting the playgrounds back open and things like that. But let's just all, make sure that we're taking the moment and taking the deep breaths, and we're making sure we have the right interpretation. Because as I've read through this, and as we did with the beach, there's a lot of things that one person reads one way and goes another way. And I'm sure that, Scott can add his 2 cents as far as, the fire chief and being way more involved in the health crisis than I have been, from the grassroots side of it. So I just want to, just as we move forward with this, kind of give that disclaimer that just because we can do something doesn't mean we have to do something, that we are permitted to stay in the previous phase if we can't or don't know of the proper way to go about doing something. Case in point, we'll talk about playgrounds later, but Castle in the Trees, we got to think about how we're going to limit, especially the out-of-towners coming and all that sorts of stuff. So there's all sorts of things in these unstaffed areas that we have that are really going to be things to tackle because we don't do that under our normal operations. With that said, the beach has been going incredibly well, in my personal opinion and from the opinion of some people that I've been talking to. We only had one kind of real issue with a couple from Brookline who we had to turn away, who was very, very upset that we turned them away. Other than that, resident-wise, we're about a third of the way through our projected past sales from last year. Social distancing is going well. We were thinking that phase 2 was going to allow 6 feet worth of distance, but it seems like they pushed the phase out and opened up more things, which is a positive thing, while keeping the group numbers and distances the same. So we didn't get to that 6 foot distance. We're still at the 12 feet of distance. Everything at the beach is, for the most part, exactly the same, with the exception of they removed the parking lot restrictions out of the second phase of beach guidance. So we did go ahead and take down some of that parking lot spacing that we had in the previous phase in order to allow for more people to actually park in the lot. But we are still having no issues with people doing the 12 feet apart on the beach, 6 feet away in the water, and everybody has been extremely good about having a mask with them and using it when necessary. The bathrooms have been being cleaned on a bi-hourly schedule. Family groups are doing a really good job waiting outside to utilize the bathrooms until it's their turn. And I did, as part of the going way back, the CPC funds from last year, I did put out for quotes yesterday to have not only, originally we were supposed to upgrade the toilets to low flow flush, but I put out to have everything upgraded to no touch. So the automated hand washing and the automatic toilet flushers. So I'll hopefully be getting those bids back. But that'll be just another step that people won't actually have to touch surfaces in the bathhouse anymore. We already we have the hand sanitizer and all of that kind of stuff. As far as that goes, we did put the swim box out. We're moving forward with getting sailing program running on Monday. Participants are going to fall under the phase 2 guidance for what is being referred to in the, sorry, I lost my place here for just a second. So under the outdoor recreation experience and educational activities, it's a little different, the guidelines put forth, than for camps. It's not as restrictive, but we will be operating the sailing program, the community sailing program, under those guidelines. We'll be restricting it back to 8 kids. Every kid's going to have their own boat, their own picnic table. We're going to make sure that there's appropriate social distancing at all times. It'll be a 1 instructor to 4 kid ratio. And we'll be running that program if we can get 3 participants a week and it makes sense. So we'll touch base on that when we get to outdoor recreation experiences and educational activities, but that is something that we're going to be moving forth with in this phase of phase 2. That was actually something that could have happened in the last phase, but we wanted to make sure we got everything else right before we started adding things. The next step that we're going to look at the beach is when is the right time, if is this the right time to open the snack shack for packaged foods, ice cream specifically we've been getting a lot of requests for, or do we invite somebody who has the troller's license like Dylan and Pete's Ice Cream to come down with the ice cream truck once in a while since they're already operating in other places. So conversations to be had as well that we're going to talk about in the Park Commission meeting, and I would love to have insight from everybody here as well. So that's kind of the high level information on the beach. And I think, from the calls that we've been getting, I think the hot topics are going to be youth sports, playgrounds, and camp moving forward. So I'll kick it back over to whoever wants to go next. Or if anybody's got any comments or questions about the beach, I guess we could tackle that and check that box off.
Are you still getting a lot of people from out of town looking to go? Or is that word gotten out that you're not letting them?
So the word is out. We do get a lot of people still coming through. I would say we've probably decreased by about 50% from so we're down to about 100 to 200 people that we're turning away based off of, coming there. I would say at this point, and one of the things I do want to have a conversation with on a day like today, where the beach is, very slow and things like that, I think that there might be some opportunity to sell some day passes, $20 a carload, limit it for a couple hours so that we can, possibly turn over the beach. But like I said, my original mark I had given specifically FinCom was I was trying to get somewhere around $12,000 in passes. And as of this morning, we were at $4,130 with just selling resident passes at $60. So we're about 2/3 short of my goal in order to, keep June at the mark I was shooting for. So that's just kind of a bigger conversation I want to have. The other conversation is, does it make sense to allow non-residents who have bought passes in the past, because we know what that number is and that's a very manageable number, does it make more sense to go that direction in order to, help continue to fund and pay for the staff that's down there doing this social distancing? So those are 2 other questions that I think we really need to look into. And going back to our original conversation, the request would be, to, make that at the discretion of the beach manager, which would be myself or Alicia, to say, okay, we can or cannot do this based off of what the crowds are looking like for the day. Anybody else?
In my opinion, if the capacity is there and you have a database of folks that have purchased passes in the past, maybe make them a priority and limit the time window, kind of a thing, and do your management of the facility like we've been discussing. And I don't see an issue with that. I don't know about what Jim Griffey might think, but
Okay.
Again, the management piece of it's really important from a Board of Health standpoint. So whatever it takes to kind of balance that occupancy and the ability to manage, I would agree, Kevin.
Okay, so I'll put that before the Park Commission tonight as a conversation, and then we'll report back with kind of what the discussion is and how that went in order to see what we can do. But I'm very happy to say that it has been going very well. People have been very compliant and, want to do everything they can to see the beach remain open, because everybody around us has, made the tough decision to close. And, I go back to what I said a month ago. It's really awesome. And, in my opinion, important that we do whatever we can to have that resource available to our residents.
I just wanted to add one clarification piece. When we had our joint meetings on last Monday evening, Paul Glavy had brought up the question of, are we allowed to say that non-residents are allowed or not allowed? So at this point, according to our town solicitor, his response was that as far as it comes to the beach proper, we can choose to do whatever we need to be able to manage the facility, just as Jim and Kevin had mentioned. When it comes to access to the actual Great Pond, which people can do through the boat ramps, that's the space where, you have to let anybody kind of come in. But as far as like being on our beach that's owned by the town, we can make that decision. That's allowed. All right. Anybody else in the working group have any questions about beach? No.
Just in regards to the snack shack, I don't know if you want to cover that now, but my opinion is, if you can still figure out a way to monetize it and have the truck come in and not have to be liable for that, as long as they're managing their sanitization process, might just be the path of least resistance. I don't know, but I'm also not opposed to the prepackaged items, but it just leads to more interaction with people. So, I think we're just trying to avoid the close contact.
Yeah. And like I said, we can go either way, whichever everybody wants to. I did speak to Dylan from Dylan and Pete's, and they did want to come run a couple test days and be able to kind of monetize it for themselves on what the give back or the profit sharing would be able to be. So if we want to go down that route, that's definitely something that we can have a discussion with. The other thing is, depending on how everybody feels, and it's prepackaged, the interactions, with the window and the way that we would kind of set it up, it would be, pretty minimal as far as how the interactions are. It's not much different than having them pay for the beach passes. But like I said, I don't want to jump into anything without, vetting every single angle of it. So we can have Dylan and Pete come in and take a look at it, and we can try it our way, but definitely whatever everybody's most comfortable with.
Yeah, I guess just looking at it from a staffing issue too. If those are guys that you don't have to pay for, you can make money from it, and you don't have to pay their salary, and that relieves your budget from staffing the snack shack. All just stuff to look into on your end. I mean, our focus is public health, so as long as we can distance people. I'm sorry, Jim, I know you were about to say something.
I'm sorry. So they just, Tim, whoever that comes in there, they just need to make sure they have a mobile food license?
Yeah, so they have the state patroller's license. They've done a couple of our Third Thursday events in the past.
But they need a license, a food service license for the town of Littleton?
Okay, I'll just double check that he has it. I know he's pulled it in previous years, but I'll make sure he has it this year.
Okay.
I have it in my email. If it hasn't changed, I'll send it right over to him.
Okay.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, the only thing occurs to me is that the truck shows up and the kids all crowd in trying to get their stuff, and I can say social distancing, but the one advantage of having just in the snack shack, they're going to be more onesie twosies as opposed to getting excited when they hear the bells or whatever it is.
Yeah, so the thought process was we actually did a quick walkthrough on Saturday to see if it was feasible. We'd park in that first spot where the telephone pole is, right when you pull down Town Road, and then use the expansion joints in the actual physical sidewalk as the 6 feet distance between customers, and then they would just walk straight down the beach from the truck. So that's how we would kind of get that flow going if we decided to do that.
Okay. I figured you thought of it already.
So.
I know the snack shack's usually a good moneymaker for you guys. How does that actually pan out? If you had the food truck come in, as opposed to staffing it, yourself.
So I'm already staffing the snack shack so I can sell beach passes. So there's already a person there. So if we did just move ahead selling ice cream, it's typically we make about 50 to 75 cents on each bar that we sell, based off of what we, whatever the going rate from ice cream suppliers or market basket is. And that, that's why I had said at this point it might be worth it to move on, because it'll help supplement the staff that we're already paying to be there. So we don't necessarily have to maybe go into allowing more people to come to the beach, but if there's options for them to possibly purchase an item from somebody who's already there, it would be immensely helpful.
Right.
And like I was saying, it's Gatorade, water, ice cream, and bag chips is really kind of what our market is down there. We don't do any prepackaged food other than that.
And do you guys have sanitizing wipes and stuff, just to at least wipe down that shelf on a regular basis?
Yeah, and what I was thinking is, I don't know how attainable it is, but I was thinking about actually getting a piece of stainless steel that we could wrap around that, rather than it be that Trex thing, so it's easier to clean, or something less porous than the Trex. I was thinking that could be something that we might implement, so that between each customer we can give it that quick wipe down, and it's definitely sanitized.
Would you need to put a piece of plexiglass in there so it was just like the little slot in the bottom so you could pass stuff out, or is there already limited?
So there is a regular double hung window that you can slide up and down. But yeah, if we put a piece of plexiglass, much like the one I'm looking at on Megan's desk right now, that would be absolutely perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Yeah, that would be awesome, because then it's perfect to slide through. And just to let everybody know, we are only doing checks and credit cards right now. The credit card swiper is on the outside of the building, so there's no cash handling. The other piece to that is, as a reminder to everybody out there in TV land as well, the beach passes that we sell, you can load money onto those. So nobody has to have any type of passing. You can go into your account, you can load money onto your card or all your kids' cards, and all you have to do is swipe that at the snack shack, and there's no money changed hands. So if we do open and we can encourage everybody to do that route, that would be the best. Load $5-10 onto your kid's card if that's if they are going to be purchasing stuff, or your card. You don't have to carry money. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet. You don't have to have everything with you. You literally bring your blue pass that you need to check into the beach anyway.
Yeah, because
Similar to the transfer station, even if you guys did that plexiglass, you could do the small sheet and just screw it in on each side, so that when your window is open, you just keep that little small limited space. But again, if you could, as long as you sanitize things on a regular basis, and obviously the credit card would limit a lot of stuff too, as far as cash and stuff changing hands.
credit card's also going to limit your profitability, because a transaction on an ice cream sandwich or something like that is going to eat into your profits big time.
So if they load their beach membership,
If they do it that way, but if it's really just a credit card,
Yeah.
you're paying big fees.
Yep.
So we personally are not paying the fees anymore. So that would go on to the actual transaction.
Okay, so then you just have to let people know that too. Okay, all right.
So that you're right.
Got it
That
covered. Great.
we can talk about.
Like $60 beach pass actually costs you $61.94.
I found that out.
Oh,
Nobody told me ahead of time.
sorry.
It cost me $61 though. I love that senior discount on occasion. I hate it, but I love it.
I think this is our second summer, actually. I think that vote was 2 years ago that we got rid of the credit card fees, because it was costing us about almost $20,000
$8,000 a year.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we can move on. Didn't want to overdo that.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was just saying, I'm going to get some water, but I think we can move on from the beach if everybody's good with that.
Hey, actually, I'm going to touch on the beach. One more thing while I'm remembering. You guys need to put the battery into your fire alarm system. The radio box is still offline at the beach.
So you and I can talk about that, but
All right.
Remember last year we made about 23 calls to Easton and no one ever came out? I cannot get those guys to return calls or come back or fix that to save my life.
Well,
All
Dell,
right. I'll get them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this is a working group. This is not a policy-making group, but we do have 2 individuals from the public here, and 1 person does have their raised hand. Are you okay with them asking their question?
Sure.
All right, so Christine, you can go ahead and unmute. Go ahead, you should be good, Christine.
Okay, can you hear me?
Uh-huh.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to say, as a resident, I really need to commend you, Alicia and Tim. You have stayed extremely
I
well.
can barely hear you,
informed.
Christine. Is it just me?
Got to turn it up.
Can
especially for
can
compliments,
you
you
hear me?
got to turn it up. Yeah.
Just barely, Christine.
Okay, what do I turn up? Do I have
Can
to
you
do
talk
something?
louder?
Microphone.
I'm talking as
There we go.
There you go.
There we go.
As a resident, Alicia, I just wanted to commend you and Tim. You have stayed so well informed and up to date on the state guidance, and I just didn't expect that Park and Rec employees would emerge as local heroes, but you have been crushing it, and you're keeping so many people safe. We're so lucky to have you, and I just wanted to say thank you.
Oh, thanks, Christine. We really appreciate that.
We appreciate you. Keep it up. You're just doing such good work. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's nice to hear. We don't hear that often, so it's appreciated.
All right, I'm muting myself. Get back to work.
All right. All right, so John, do you want to go over some of the camp stuff, updates and phases with Camp T? Because I know that's something that potentially might be on the Board of Health meeting this evening, is talking about the licensing for Camp T. So that might be a Jim and John conversation together.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the agenda says for the Board of Health meeting tonight. Maybe someone can chime in and tell me if the camp talk, but Jim and I did meet yesterday, and when we last spoke, he mentioned that that might be up for discussion tonight. So maybe some clarification on that, but I'd be happy to share any information that I'm working with Jim on the plan for camp to open on June 29th, but I don't know if someone wants to tell me if it's on the agenda tonight or not.
It's on the agenda for discussion. Yeah.
There's a lot, so I guess maybe, I don't know if you want me to go through a typical day, or you want me to, walk you through. I guess going through the typical day might be the best way for me to walk you through exactly what camp's going to look like and how it's different than it normally is, and based on the guidelines that we've received and conversations with Jim, for clarification on some of these guidelines to put into practical use. But I can certainly, I don't know if you want to ask me questions and I can answer them. I don't know how you would like me to proceed with that. Don't have like a PowerPoint or something. I'm still reading the policies and procedures, but be certainly happy to share anything I can.
So I think that the big day. Okay. The big thing is we're working on creating what the actual policy, because, and Jim, you can jump in. The understanding is that, we have the guidelines, but then what we create and then is approved by the Park Commission, that's kind of like law, if you will. So that's we are trying to work with, this group, the Park Commission, Jim, Board of Health will come to meetings if you guys want. We actually have a Park Commission meeting tandem tonight with you guys. So, if you need us, I guess give us a call. We'll probably be in that other meeting, but if we need to send a representative, we can definitely, ship somebody over. So just kind of talking about sort of what that policy is a little bit, John, and then, as Kevin asked, if you want to go through the day schedule a little bit.
Yeah, so a typical day at
Hey, guys.
COVID-19 camp. What?
I was just going to tell everybody, because I don't think everybody may have looked this morning. In the Google Drive, I updated the camp guidelines. There's one that says revised. It has green writing. That was effective, I believe, Saturday. So if you were looking at the old 33-page document, there's an updated 32-page document. with green writing, and that has some of the new guidelines. But you do have access to that. Sorry for interrupting, Cass.
That's all right. Very minimal changes, as Jim and I discussed yesterday. But so, you know, we're going to have a staggered drop off and pickup. We've changed our camp hours from 8:30 to 3:30 to 8 to 4. We've removed before and after care. We removed our CITs. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly how much past things you guys have been aware of, but about changes we've made in advance coming in. We've removed our field trips as one of the guides, one of the things that we're going to offer. In the guidelines from the state, there was no swimming. If it was a communal watering hole to go to, pool, publicly used access for, so that, you know, eliminated Long Lake for swimming for campers. For us, for camp, and working with the school department, we've got the 4 classrooms that we normally have. We have the cafeteria, the gymnasium, we have the use of all the fields. One of the things that was mentioned about was playground use, and Jim and I have been talking about sanitizing the playground in advance of each day and between groups. So that will be a part of the plan that gets developed and written out to, you know, to give to the Board of Health for approval. So that will be something that we've that we're working through as far as that procedure, but we don't have it exactly in writing. It's going to be kind of just to wipe down all the surfaces or spray and then let dry. But so back to the drop off will be between 8 and 9 a.m. Parents will be given a designated time to come, you know, 10-minute window to drop off. We'll have 2 points of entry. We're working those details out with the school. I'm going there tomorrow with Bill Maher to, and I've asked for clarification from the school department on which access points we can use, but we'll have 2 points of entry. There'll be a pre-screening checklist that parents will have to, they'll have to print at home. It's going to be a symptoms checklist, a temperature check, and a hand wash check. And they all have to check all the boxes and sign. And they'll be, as they roll in to drop off, we have hired, new to this year as well, we hired a camp nurse and a camp custodian to help with sanitizing, just to mention that as a sidebar. But we'll have a nurse set up and other healthcare. So we have healthcare supervisors, which essentially is anybody with first aid, CPR, AED training, all the way up to a pediatrician. So I'll be working as the second person. And we will have a checklist as they enter. There was temperature checks as part of the original plan, but that's been removed. And Jim and I have discussed that. So it'll be a visual checklist, a question checklist to the child. You know, we're looking for symptoms, all the symptoms they've given us for in the guidelines. You know, I don't know if you want me to go over those, but they're listed in the guidelines and they're going to be listed on our policy and procedure. They'll have to get the okay from the nurse or myself to enter camp, and they will immediately have to sanitize their hands before going to their group. In those groups, the classrooms or cohort, as they're called in some of the guidelines, no groups of no bigger than 12, which make up of 10 campers and staff. The numbers for total group sizes have changed. They're allowing us to have more staff if we need to cycle people in, but the plan is to have 2 staff members with every group of the younger children, grades 3rd down to 1st graders. We did eliminate kindergartners as a possible, incoming kindergartners as a possible group of campers this year. So they will go, there'll be a grid on the floor. We have been designated 42 square feet per child as the minimal requirement for social distancing. And so we'll have a grid that matches those dimensions in each of the classrooms. 4 of the classrooms that we have access to will be marking, you know, with Bill Maher's approval and the school department with just some tape to put down and take up at the end of camp. And that will become their space. And kids will have to bring in supplies like normal school supplies that they kind of already have probably have at home, crayons, markers, paper, just to keep the minimal shared materials down as much as possible. Those kids will go to their little area, their little square in the grid, and they'll have all their stuff in there for the day. they will be in that classroom and with those staff members for the day, or they'll go outside to the playground or outside to the fields to play on and return to just that classroom. They'll have lunch in that classroom. They'll have everything will happen in that group of 12. There'll be no circumstances in which they are interacting with other groups other than like technology. So we'll have computers set up with Zoom, and they'll be able to sort of do group things like that. You know, maybe some group scavenger hunts within their classrooms, or, you know, all our activities will try to maintain the same with social distancing. What I didn't mention is that the child will wear a mask as they enter. The parent that will have to, even in their car, have a mask on as they drop their child off. And the child will have a mask in interaction with full PPE, gloves and mask for the check-in person until they get to their designated grid on the floor in their room. Or we do have some spaces on the fields. We're going to be working with some tents out there in which they'll have a grid on the floor as well. With paint probably, or you know, string or whatever we're going to come up with for that. I haven't figured that out yet, but they will be able to remove their mask once they are not within 6 feet of somebody else. In any circumstances that they will become within 6 feet of somebody else, the mask will be required to be worn. So as kids enter and exit, the masks will have to be, you know, put on. There's a hand washing plan for, you know, and, you know, hand sanitizer plan for different, you know, activities that they do, or things that happen throughout the day. That's part of the policy, but, you know, you'll see that in writing. I don't know if I need to go over those with you, but, and then between 3 and 4, the pickup will be the same as drop off, except in reverse. So if you had like an 8 to 8:10 drop off time, then your pickup time will be the first to come out from 3 to 3:10, and then so forth. And I have an exit and entry plan that is going to be on here with the maps of the school. We'll have a sanitization plan for shared materials, furniture, classrooms, and restrooms. Like I said, we've hired a custodian that will be there to make sure those things happen, but staff will assist as well. I'm not sure. So we do have some COVID, you know, if a symptomatic child is, you know, happens throughout the day, then we have a plan for that, which I'd be happy to go over with. I have asked for clarification for an isolation room for anybody that's seen as symptomatic. It is in the guidelines. I don't have an exact location for that yet. I sent an email to Michelle Kane and Steve Mark from the school department asking for, you know, another access. I'm actually hoping for the nurses station, which would be perfect for us to use as a nurses station, but I don't know if that will be granted to us or not. But I guess long story short is there's tons of details I can certainly share with you. I don't know how much you want to hear and how much you want to see, but that's kind of like what camp will look like. We're going to separate, you know, the day schedule starting at 9 into 1 hour blocks, and they will be doing activities in the classrooms or on the fields or at the playground for those 1 hour blocks throughout the day, a half hour for lunch, hand washing before they eat. You know, there'll be hand washing built into the day, and sanitation, you know, as needed, as practical, as, you know, required by the guidelines that we've been given.
And that'll all be in the PowerPoint for tonight? Or
I don't have a PowerPoint. Actually, writing it, it's kind of overwhelming, quite frankly.
I know.
I think, you know, I hope that gives you sort of an idea of what it will look like. But like I said, if you have any questions, I do have answers and more information. So if you have any, you know, clarification on things, certainly ask. But I'm still working through the document that I'm going to present at some point, as soon as possible, preferably, so that I can bring them out to the public. Because we would like to give the parents and registrant. We already have existing registrants, and
full.
there's 1 week so our capacity is going to look like we're going to have 10 groups of 10. That gives us 100 for capacity.
How do you do that with 4 classrooms?
So 4 classrooms, 4 groups, 2 groups in the cafeteria, and 4 groups on the tents.
Okay.
The cafeteria is big enough to give to 2 groups with the square footage.
Yeah.
So
I thought you only needed 30 square feet per person.
30 square feet per person is the emergency plan for, if all the kids from inside the tents have to come in, we have to give them 30 square foot.
And you have that?
Yes. Oh, so Steve and Mark said anytime there's an emergency, we will have access to any and all parts of the building that we don't normally have. So he said, of course, if that happens, then, we have keys, we can get into other classrooms or whatever is necessary to keep the kids safe and distant at the same time.
And are they going to open up multiple bathrooms in the school for your use?
So right now we have access to 2 boys and girls rooms, the one on the first grade wing and the one that's on the way to the kindergarten wing. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
And then we have a staff restroom that's in the staff room, which usually is where our staff congregates, which won't be allowed this year, but we will use that restroom for staff only. And then we'll have porta potties outside for children to use and hand washing stations as well for the 4 groups that will be meeting out on the field under tents during the camp year.
I guess
what do you do for meals? Do the kids bring their own meals?
Yeah, we don't provide and have not provided meals for quite some time at Camp T. I don't remember even when my kids were young enough, although my youngest is going into his last year there. But so kids will have to bring a backpack every day. It's in our list of items to bring. They have to have their, it'd be a non-perishable lunch. We never offered refrigeration for lunches, so it had to be, things that don't require refrigeration. And they will stay in their backpacks and they will have lunch in the classrooms or designated area per group. And then they will have to, pack those back away into their backpacks. They're going to have their little square is going to be their little world. And that's where they'll keep all their things throughout the day, including lunch.
One thing I wanted to just mention, in some of their guidance, if you had, you have the nurse's office, where you'll deal with some of the basic day-to-day things. But the one thing that I did read was their recommendation, if somebody actually came down with symptoms, they wanted that in a different space.
Yes.
That you're not contaminating the nurse's office,
Yes, I actually asked on an email today for an access to, so I've asked, the first recommendation from Steve and the school department was to have the nurses station be on the stage in the cafeteria, which we're having 2 groups meet in. So as long as they're not, I would rather have it be somewhere in the nurses station, but I was also looking for another room, maybe the entranceway or the little lobby area, so to speak, of the library would be that's always been our cool down area where they've allowed us to have kids go in if they were overheated. It's air conditioned in there and allowed us to have a little space there to, keep a kid cool in a quiet area. So I've asked today for that to be the isolation room, so to speak. If we do have a kid that requires bathroom use, we have to designate one of the bathrooms on site as only for their use until completely sanitized afterwards. So that's only if they would need to use the restroom once they become symptomatic of any of these symptoms here, and we have a plan for that, and that's going to be like an as-needed thing.
Can you just do like a pop-up tent outside with a porta potty?
We could, yeah. I think we'd rather have running water or, so, yeah. So one of the things of the isolated bathroom it'd be really easy to take the staff restroom and isolate that, close it down until someone, until it's been cleaned. It's really small. I don't know if you've seen the staff restroom, but it's like it's like
I'm just thinking as far as the library goes, somebody coughs on a book, you got to clean all the books.
Right. We wouldn't be close.
Yeah, good point.
Right. Yeah, that would be something we need to discuss with the school department for sure. I'm still working through those details, but thank you, Scott. That is definitely something we are talking about.
Good.
So I guess, Kevin, from my perspective for the board meeting tonight, I guess the guidelines are pretty specific, and on top of the camp regulations, you provide I think a pretty good pathway to do what they want to do. And John's certainly on the road to get all that taken care of. Again, I think what the board's going to need to kind of convey is what you feel comfortable with, so that I can work with John to make sure that we get all that in place.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing, it's just my opinion. I don't speak for the board. The only thing is I'm just curious why we're not taking temperatures at the door. I get it. they're filling out the form, but I don't trust it.
So that was something the state changed.
Yeah. I mean, Acton's taking temperatures at the door.
So so the COVID team, there was two components. One was the questioning the reliability of the thermometers, and the other one was the reliability as fever as a symptom for COVID. Whether sometimes, particularly with kids, they may not have it, so it may not be all that useful a tool for you trying to weed people out of that. So I think probably the most important thing is messaging to families ahead of time about the importance of keeping kids at home to make sure this whole program can be safe.
Mm.
If for some reason, Kevin, that does change, we have purchased 2 of the infrared thermometers and we do have them on site. So that is something we have access to and are available or able to use.
And you have the health staff, so I feel like, why not take a minute? I don't know.
They can certainly go above and beyond the guidance, so that's not the problem. Yep.
I think it would make people feel a little bit better too.
Jim, I had one question. One of our staff, Megan, had brought it up, and I was thinking about this myself. Like yearly health examinations. So, for example, mine was supposed to be like 5 days ago, and it got pushed back to September, like end of September. So, some of these families that had their health and immunization forms that are usually updated on a yearly basis, do we give them an extension? Even if they, are kind of going over that year deadline?
18 months.
18 month, yeah.
Yeah. So the camp regulations distinguish what you need for health records based on whether you're at a day camp, residential camp, a sports camp, a trip camp. And so for day camps, they require the immunization records, which should be pretty valid, even if the rest of the medical form is out of date a bit. And they require you to get a health history from the parent. So I think, John, you have a health history form that the parents fill out, and that should be done even if you're getting a physical exam on an annual or 18-month basis. So I don't think that's an impediment except for you. So from the perspective of the regulations, as long as you have the health history and up-to-date immunization records, we're okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yep.
All right, any other questions on camp? Going once, going twice. All right. Sorry, John, I do have a PowerPoint. So I'm going to share this with you guys.
Can I just ask one question on the camp? How are the signups?
Oh yeah, I was just about to say that. So I just got the updated numbers from Megan, our admin. Give me 1 second to pull it up. So given our 100 person maximum, so we have 7 weeks of camp, and our numbers from weeks 1 to 7 go currently. Now we open sign up in December. So a lot of people signed up in advance, and then of course all this happened, and then we moved to like a $0 waitlist only registration once sort of we were all quarantined at that point, which we need to proceed with, and this is part of the importance of me giving this presentation to the parents. So whatever I'm going to, we haven't exactly decided how we're going to, give these regulations to the parents. Obviously, there'll be access to this document that I'm writing, as well as, like maybe like a question and answer kind of thing already in advance for them. And then we'll send out to all of our people. But, we don't know what's going to happen once. My point is, we don't know what's going to happen once we've given out the regulations and exactly how camp looks. But currently, week 1, we have 60. Week 2, we have 89. Week 3, we have 105, which is 5 more than our capacity. Week 3, we have 90. Week 4, we have 90. Sorry. Week 4, we have 90. Week 5, we have 97. Week 6 is 95. Week 7 is 83. So our numbers are pretty good. So that week of July 4th is always a week that's got minimal amount of kids, because it does fall on a holiday week. The 3rd is technically a holiday, even though we're operating that day as camp. But Our numbers look good. What is going to happen once we've released these numbers, reach the information of camp, and kind of walk through this, like how camp's going to look, just like I kind of gave you. And I know I probably missed some specifics, but we're not sure if that's going to go up or down, but we know that we have a cap of 100. So we may already be there. We may lose a lot of people once this happens. We may not. I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So let's see here. All right, so I'm going to go through a couple of things. So just this past week, because of the phase 2, we've had a lot of conversation about athletic fields. We've had a few conversations about playgrounds, as well as basketball courts. So this is something that we're going to talk about tonight at the Park Commission meeting. So the PowerPoint that I'm showing you is anything that's on a white slide is taken directly from the state. The only thing that I've amended is I've kind of popped out a few pieces of sentences in red just to kind of highlight them and bring them forward because they're important pieces. And then anything that's going to be in this kind of yellow background is something that, you know, I'm asking the Park Commission to discuss and to possibly create a policy on tonight. It's up to them. Again, you know, as that reminder Tim said earlier, you know, just because we're in phase 2 doesn't mean that we necessarily have to move forward and do anything at this point in time. You know, we are limited with our staffing. We are financially in a deficit, so that's something that we have to consider as well, so that anything that we do here is not going to bring on additional costs to the department at this time. You know, we have 3 different potential areas where we could make some sort of policy tonight. So it's just something I wanted to discuss with everybody here and just kind of get the input from everyone just before we have this meeting tonight, and see if there's things that, you know, we should look into, add, subtract, you know, have further discussion on, anything in that realm. So the first thing is field use. And I want to be very clear that the athletic fields, which are like grass fields in town, are under our purview for Parks and Recreation, but Alumni Field is not. So we've kind of gotten some phone calls and conversation on the side that there has been a lot of use of Alumni Field. I have not seen it myself. I haven't seen any pictures or video myself, but it's something that's been said quite a few times. So, you know, we're focusing specifically on the grass fields, baseball fields, softball fields, things like that. And so, all right, so what I have up here is actually from Peabody Recreation. So Jen Davis, this was their guidelines that they are putting into place. You know, we're big fans in MRPA of don't reinvent the wheel. If somebody's got something good, go with it. We usually support each other in that. In here, this kind of covers everything that we need to as far as field use. I think the big concern that comes through with field use is that a lot of the stuff is skills and drills only. There are no games. There are no scrimmages. Those are not permitted when it comes to contact sports. And a fair amount of things actually fit into the contact sports area. So if you can see down here on the bottom, couple up, you know, basketball, football, baseball, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. Pretty much the only thing that's considered a non-contact sport is tennis and other racket sports. You know, we have max group that's 10. There has to be an actual plan put in place by the organization that has to be reviewed by the department or the Park Commission. And, you know, that's got to essentially say that they're adhering to these guidelines, you know, that they're encouraging the social distancing. They're still supposed to be 12 feet apart. If they are playing on a surface, so let's say like a giant soccer field, or some of the basketball courts are larger, they can, as long as they can provide maintain 20 feet from another group of 10, you could have more individuals out there, but that 20 feet has to be maintained. The big thing that I think we're concerned about is that, no games and no scrimmages, at least at this point. When we get into phase 3, that's a possibility. So this is a discussion that, we need to be able to have and make some sort of decision whether we want to open the athletic fields or not. So just kind of going through the information that's up here on the slide as far as, this potential policy. Does anybody have any questions or anything that they want to add or suggest? Flipping through. Nope, nobody? Okay. All right. So then I will go ahead and move forward with our playground usage. And this is definitely some information that, Scott and Jim definitely would love some feedback from you guys in the situation. So we would be looking at, if we're talking about 300 King specifically, we would want to limit the amount of parking space similar to what we did in phase 1 at the beach. We would want to do that at 300 King. One of the big issues that, we were having a conversation about prior to COVID-19 was we had people that were parking on the grass and parking up and down the street and finding all different places to be able to park to come in. So clearly that's a park that capacity was already a problem before we got into COVID-19. So
Can I just say something before you
yeah,
go?
Kevin.
If you're not going to staff it, I don't think you can open it.
Okay, that's your take on it. Okay.
Much like the beach, we're going to see the same behavior, and a lot of them are out of towners. I don't think it's feasible.
So these are the guidelines, and they say that if it is unstaffed and we have signage posted, that we are able to open.
I get it. I just feel like, as a Board of Health member,
Yeah.
people go down there, I roll down there and I see trash all over the place. And so
Yep.
people don't read, people don't care,
Yeah.
they're going to do whatever they want to do. And I just don't think it's safe.
Okay. So like I said, it's all part of the discussion to think about this. Scott or Jim, do either of you have anything to kind of weigh in on this?
I guess, I don't know if I'm, so Alicia, I don't know if I'm, again, I've seen how busy that parking lot gets.
Yeah.
And I guess my concern would be, there's a continuum of people's concern about how close people get to them and how often and how regularly and how faithfully they're compliant with the rules. And again, if there's not some way to limit the use so that there's less likelihood that people come into contact with one another, or manage it so you can do that, I think that makes it hard in such a popular place, at least as I drive by noticing the parking lot. So I'm not sure if you've thought about, when John and I were talking, I asked him how many people are using it now that you have the parking lot closed, and it seemed like not many people are down there.
I don't believe there's, I honestly drive down as often as I possibly can, and I have not seen anyone in there, but we've also barricaded the entrance, and there's a giant sign up that says that the park is closed.
So is it worth trying to leave the parking lot closed and just use it for kind of passive? Would that kind of be a good way to limit people going in there, to try to control how crowded it gets? I don't know. Like I say, I've seen the parking lot. I haven't seen what the facility looks like, but I've seen the parking lot full. So I recognize it's a pretty popular place.
I'm open to anything. At this point in time, personally and professionally, I'm kind of more on the side of keeping it closed, because it's not an area that we're able to manage like we are the beach. Also, we don't have staffing down there. That's one of the facilities like Fay Park that's, left unmanaged. So it really would be up to the visitors to make sure that they are abiding by the guidelines of staying 6 feet away. If you can't stay 6 feet away, then you need to have a mask for yourself and for the children that are visiting. Additionally, you'd have to be able to pick trash up. Yeah, it's pack in, pack out, and that has been an issue even before we got into COVID-19.
And when the kid coughs in the slide, I mean, who goes and sanitizes the slide?
Correct. And at this point in time, it's not feasible for us to clean. What it does say let me go down here. So general sanitization, and this is again directly from the state. So high touch surfaces made of plastic or metal, including grab bars, railings, tables, benches, should be frequently cleaned. So yes, we don't have staff that's going to be down there doing it. So that is the one thing that bars us from doing this. It does say that cleaning. Sorry, Tim.
So it does say that they generally require fitness areas generally require a normal cleaning routine, but do not require disinfection. So just so everybody's clear on kind of that.
Yeah.
And then the other piece to it that falls under Castle is the cleaning and disinfection of wood surfaces or ground covers is not recommended. So Castle in the Trees, technically being made all out of wood, with the exception of the swings and some of the other stuff, they're
the Trex. Sorry, it used to be wood. It no longer is.
Yeah, it's all plastic now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So the wood chips on the ground that abides by that. We wouldn't have to disinfect or clean the wood chips, but the actual play surface itself it's a plastic product now.
And that's tough because, even if you leave that parking lot closed and say that the park is opened, they'll just park at the fire station. They'll park all around, the historical society, and it'll fill up quick again. It's definitely one of those places, at least for, this portion of phase 2, you're probably better off just leaving it closed.
Yeah. The other thing I'd mentioned to Alicia this morning, just, looking at this from all angles, is that if we wanted to get the basketball courts somehow open for the drills and skills, because I know that there's been one individual specifically who is hammering down on basketball courts. We could put the blue snow fencing up around Castle in the Trees like we did at the beach, and block off the playground. But that's just, another idea of what we could do, because we could restrict access even further to actually keep people out of there. So that we could, have access to that as well. Not to put the cart in front of the horse, because I know we're not on basketball course yet.
I moved it up. So, I mean, the impression I'm getting is we're not ready for playgrounds, and I am kind of in the same boat. So that's kind of the reason to bring up the discussion and talk about it. So, we can move on just to save time since we're all kind of on the same page. So basketball courts, and this is the concern that I have with basketball courts, is similar to both the playground and to the athletic fields use. So because it shares the facility, so 300 King Street, that's the name of the park. I know a lot of people think it's Castle and Trees, but it's not. The 300 King in general, we've got the 3 basketball courts down there, a walking path, and a playground, which is a very popular place around the state. People do travel to come to Castle and Trees. People have, you see people talking about it from all cities, towns, all over the place. So it is a point of interest that does bring individuals from out of Littleton in. So, again, if we open that parking lot for the basketball courts, we're kind of opening to the same issues of individuals trying to go in and use the playground. So we can do what Tim said, and it has been working very efficiently at the beach. We have that purple snow fencing, which is how tall is it, Tim? Is it like 4 foot, 5 foot? You're on mute.
It's 4 foot tall.
4 foot. Yep. So it would work a lot more than, just putting up like caution tape, which is kind of how we started out with some of the playgrounds. So,
It's also staffed over at the beach, and people
that is correct,
take
Kevin.
that into consideration, if they're going to jump the fence or not. Is Tim watching? Okay, no, he's not. So I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and you say that, and like I think there was the one Sunday that I worked, not this past week, but the weekend previous. It definitely looked like the snow fencing itself had been lifted up from the bottom, and people like crawled underneath. So, I don't know if that's something that was happening after hours or what the deal was. But I rehammered everything back in and, put in a couple more zip ties to make sure the fence was secure top and bottom. So you're right. It could happen. That's a reality. Overall, we are allowed, according to phase 2, to be able to open the basketball courts up for use again. It's the same thing that we talked about with the athletic field, that it has to be skills and drills. People have to maintain a 6-foot distance.
The athletic fields are supervised.
Say that again?
But the athletic fields are supervised.
Well, they're not actually. So when I can drive around, I can do that. The reality is it would be up to the youth sports organizations, the coaches, to be enforcing that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the difference. So our staff is not the one.
You're not supervising it, but somebody is.
They would have to, yeah.
Well, it's easier said than done, because I know they're out on alumni pretty frequently in the last few weeks, and it's just their kids playing. There's nobody supervising anything out there.
Yeah.
And just to address it, that's also where we run into a catch-22 as a collective group here, because the schools have purview over Jet and alumni, and
Not Jet. We're Jet.
over alumni field since it was redone. And unfortunately, throughout this, the rec department has gotten numerous calls about the school not enforcing alumni, and people have been using the weight room in the high school. And we've gotten a ton of calls about it, and there's nothing that the rec department can do about it. So, we as a collective group, as a town, need to set these policies, and we all have to enforce them the same way. So that's, I think, one of the pieces moving forward, that until we're in the clear, that everybody has to get on board with this so that there's not mixed messages being sent out there.
I think part of that's, that can be difficult, because who's going to be the babysitter? We can say whatever we want, but unless there's somebody there all the time watching these locations, it's difficult to do. And, the police department's not just going to patrol fields to kick people off and stuff like that,
Why is it not all locked? It should just be locked.
There's no fences.
There's no fences where? At alumni?
Well, there are at alumni, but not on the normal fields.
And Jet too. And the weight room, that should be locked. Like why is this even happening? Who's in charge?
That one, yeah.
Who's in charge and who's not paying attention?
Under the school's purview.
Well, let's get the contact and let them know that that's not okay.
But a lot of the other baseball fields, they don't have fences all the way around to be able.
I know Shaker, and they don't have fences, but at least John's going to be the guy, during the day, or your staff is going to be the folks over there.
Camp. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't think there should be any mixed messages. It should just not be allowed if there's no one there supervising.
Yep. Okay, so I guess what's the group's overall view then of the basketball court use at this point in time?
You were playing sports, it wasn't always for skills and practice. And if you open the basketball courts at 300, they're going to be doing pickup games.
That's the concern. Yeah.
Is it possible to open it up to supervised groups and they go down there and participate as you would at any other field? I don't know if you have a basketball league in town or something like that that's looking to practice on the courts. But at least then there'd be an organizer, somebody to actually pay attention to whoever's down on the field.
Didn't the rec department do the 3-on-3 thing and have
We
somebody
did.
down there supervising?
Yeah, so we did a 3-on-3 tournament, which we couldn't do right now. Yeah, so all of the basketball clubs and things like that usually go through AAU and different organizations. We haven't actually held a basketball league. If we did, it's well before my time. Yep.
But the request that you're getting, is that from somebody who's doing organized basketball?
So the individual that's contacted us, I think, so yes, they're part of a organization. However, I think the concern is more that they just want it open to the public.
Oh, okay.
And I think if you had it open at all, people would see that it's open, and how do they know that, oh, it's okay now if those people are there, but I'm not allowed? And that would just seems impossible to manage, it seems to me. Right now, it's all it's blocked off, it's closed, the parking lot's closed. It's very clear that Sorry, go ahead.
It seems to me that the upside is not outweighed by the downside to opening. It just seems opening it, it's the downsides outweigh the upsides, in my opinion.
I agree.
Okay. So that's kind of where we're at this point. I think that we'll have to we'll have the meeting tonight and discuss these again, and then we'll have to.
What do you need, honey?
Oh, sorry, Kevin. And then, we're going to have to start tackling things like we have individuals that are looking for the use of park space to be able to, have events. Like we have somebody that asked to be able to get married on Long Lake Beach. So, that's at this point in time, we're not accepting any sort of reservations for the usage of parks. But as we kind of go along through these phases, we're going to get to the place where we can start opening back up to that again. So, that'll be part of the conversation as well. Sorry, I just realized that this guy's like super thirsty right now. So if you hear a noise in the background, it's Maverick drinking water. All right. Let's see. So that's all I have as far as any of the discussions that we're going to have tonight for looking at policies. So are there any other questions or anything that's popped up that anybody here wants to talk to this group about?
Not that I can think of. No.
I'll sit here.
All right. Yep. Well, thank you all for your time. I really appreciate this. I mean, this is super important, and I know you're all really, really busy. So I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with us. If we do this again next week, is the 1 o'clock time still good for you on Tuesday, everybody? Okay, so we'll just keep this as like the rotating time. So I'll get another agenda out and then get the information up just so you all have it. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a good day.
All right, have a great day.
Bye.
Another piece that we'll have ready for everybody for next week is we sent out a survey to the almost 300 towns that are part of our Massachusetts Recreation and Parks Association. And we'll have data on who has fields open, who has fields closed, tennis courts, basketball courts. We have some signage that we're all sharing for facilities that are opening. So I'll dump all that stuff into the Google Drive so people can look. And if it seems like, people are getting some best practices and stuff underway that we can start adopting, I will have all that stuff together for you guys to all take a look at.
Tim, could you add me to that Google Drive? I never got the invite.
Yeah, no worries. I'll send it over right now.
I think, check the email I sent out this morning, Kevin, because I think the link is on there. So
was it on there? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
And then if you get an opportunity to, like I had mentioned, if you go to the Boston 25 website, there was a very interesting 4-minute story about youth sports this morning. The gentleman who spoke was the president of Wayland Youth Sports. He also happens to have very close connections with our town solicitor, who recommended that we use their framework when we were setting up our youth sports council. But they have a pretty good beat on kind of everything that's going on. They also had a gentleman from a hockey association had spoke on that as well. But it's a good 4-minute clip, and I think the two statements made in the last 30 seconds are very profound moving forward. So if everybody gets an opportunity to just kind of take a peek at that, I'll put the link to it in a Word document in the Google Drive so everybody can click on it and take a quick look at it.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful day.
See you later.
Thanks, too.
Bye.